Hey guys, this is Smithy. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is a very special one. We're going to talk about eyeshadow palette, and that's my favorite topic to talk about, but also we are talking about all indie eyeshadow palettes, especially with the neutral color story. I feel like I am a person who loves wearing neutral eyeshadows, not leaning like super warm or super cool, but I do like to wear muted colors too. So I really thought that we can do a video talking about my neutral color story from indie brands, and these are all the palettes that I absolutely love and adore. So without further ado, let's begin. Let's talk about the first brand that came into my mind as soon as I thought about this neutral color story, and this is a Glaminatrix Cosmetics, and this is their Barely Basic palette. This is an absolutely amazing neutral color story. It has everything in it. Like, it has warm tones, it has cool tones, but nothing is like overly cool or overly warm, but you also have like interesting shimmers on the top two rows too. I feel like this is such an amazing quality palette, and if you love this color story, I feel like this can be like your tippy top favorite, like a neutral color story in your collection. This is such an amazing palette. I will leave the review of this in the iCards above for you guys so that you can check it out, but definitely one of my favorite brands. Okay, the next brand that I want to talk about is Cosmic Beauty, and I would give you both the recommendations, the neutrals as well as cool trills palette. I have actually recorded this eye look and I'll put it towards the end of the video. This is not the palette that I use, but you can easily get the similar look with this cool trills palette. Now this is especially for the cool tone lovers. It has some mauve tones, some blue tones, some purpley tones, but it is not like overly colorful too. You definitely can get colors, but you can also get some beautiful neutral looks. And it also has like this beautiful multi-chrome at the edge. Can you see that? It's such a stunning one. There is a lot of things that you can do with this palette, and I absolutely love the looks that come out of this palette, so I definitely wanted to recommend this. But look at the top row. That's like so neutral, like it's most neutral as you can get, okay? I also wanted to talk about neutrals palette because this is like a classic neutral, I would say, with like browner color story, and this will come in so handy. Again, this has a mix of interesting shimmers. Look at that multi-chrome, it's so pretty. This duochrome, that is stunning. Like, there are so many things that you can do with this palette. It's such an amazing quality too. If you are from like fair, light, medium, tan skin tone, I feel like this will come in very handy. But also it has a beautiful black that can deepen out any looks too. I love the addition of like a lighter tone and a darker tone and everything in between. Beautiful quality palette. I recently did pick out their Tis the Season palette also. It's coming on my way when I'm filming this, but if you've already seen that review, you know that it is already with me. Okay, let's talk Unearthly Rain Cosmetics. I have a bunch from Unearthly Rain Cosmetics, but because I feel like they absolutely nail the color story that I like, because I love a neutral color story but with muted tones, and I feel like all these palettes have that in them. Let's talk about the smaller eyeshadow palettes. Happy Go Lucky palette as well as Nutty by Nature palette. Both of them have a very neutral color story but with interesting shimmers. The quality that Unearthly Rain does is absolutely amazing. So that's not a question by any means. Like, that is such a beautiful neutral palette. Like, I know that looks green, but as soon as you put it on your eyes, it's so wearable, especially on those mattes. It's a beautiful palette. Especially if you have not tried Unearthly Rain Cosmetics, I feel like that those smaller palettes is so nice. Okay, let's talk about some bigger palettes from them. Harvest Moon. This is how my love affair started with Unearthly Rain Cosmetics. Such a beautiful color story. Again, very neutral leaning, but also with amazing shimmers. Then we had the other two that I wanted to mention is actually three. Light in Your Eyes palette. This is the newest edition of their palette. Look at this color story. It's a beautiful color story. I absolutely love it. If you are a neutral wearer and you love interesting shimmers, this is spicy neutrals but wearable. It is absolutely everything in one palette. I would highly recommend it. I am an affiliate with Eeny Rain, that's Smithy Sony, to save you 10% off. The next palette that I wanted to mention is Cold Moon palette. This is completely a cool tone color story. Mine is a little jumbled up, but it is more of those like sagey greens, those grays, mauvey tones. I have mixed mine with Groovy Garden. This is another palette that I absolutely love. Groovy Garden is one of my favorite matte color story that Eeny Rain has ever done. Now, I mixed a lot of Groovy Garden shades with Cold Moon inside this palette along with a little bit of flutter and created my own perfect, if I say so myself, color story in the neutral department, and this is my curated palette. I have recorded this video because a lot of people asked me how I curated this. I link it in the iCards above for you guys. I feel like this is as perfect as I can get in curating a palette from the already existing shades. This, I wear it so often that I refuse to put it back, but I'll put it like towards the end of the video so that I can show you and rank all the palettes accordingly. But Groovy Gardens is also a beautiful neutral leaning palette. I would highly recommend any of these palettes. Okay, let's talk about Unearthly Cosmetics. Unearthly Cosmetics is also another brand that does neutral eyeshadows so perfectly. Their color story definitely like call out to me. Their newest palette is also on my way. I did a good shopping, okay, during my Black Friday, and I cannot complain. But surely my wallet is complaining. Okay, let's start off. I have 3 palettes to recommend from them. I have the Gargoyle palette, Fall Magic palette, and the Sorcerous Smoke palette. Let's start off with the Sorcerous Smoke palette because that's the first thing that popped into my head as soon as I thought about a neutral color story. This is neutral but muted colorful tones. I absolutely love the looks that has come out of this palette. Like any look that I've created, I have worn this to office several times and I've absolutely loved every look that came out of this palette. Absolutely 100% would recommend that. Fall Magic palette is basically for warm tone lover but grungy tones too. This is a little bit more on the colorful side, but again, muted on the eyes. It's really pretty. I would highly recommend this too. And again, if you are a colorful wearer, especially a cool tone one, Gargoyle palette is so amazing, you guys. The top row is like proper neutral brown tone shades. Then we have a green purple row, and then we have this muted blue row. Very pretty. This is another palette that can get me the look that I'm wearing today. Absolutely love the quality of Unearthly Cosmetics palettes in general. They do eyeshadows. Their lip liner is what I'm wearing right now. I'm wearing the shade Cafe, I think. Yes, Cafe mixed with the shade Char on my lips. That's all that I have on my lips today. Okay, let's move on to Sigma Beauty. Sigma made a neutral palette that was perfect for me and I could not recommend it, okay? This is the Cool Neutrals palette. Again, this is another palette that I wear to office quite often, I would say. It has such a beautiful muted color story that I would 100% recommend. The shimmers are very like twinkling on the eyes. It's not like overly textured or anything. So it will give you that shimmer and shine, very reminiscent of what I have on my eyes right now. It's definitely not chunky by any means and it gives you such beautiful looks. The mauvey tones are my favorite along with the purple tones. Like this quad has my heart. This shimmer is amazing. All the mattes are so blendable too. I absolutely would recommend that. Okay, let's talk about Lunar Beauty. Lunar Beauty's Nude Prism palette is one of my favorite neutral color stories, especially for their shimmers. These shimmers, again, they're so dimensional on the eyes, but I also feel like they could have given us more variety, especially for my skin tone. I feel like it is a very pinky neutral color story on my eyes. So whatever shades I wear and pair it up with whatever mattes on the bottom, the variation of the shimmer I feel like is not that different from each other. So as soon as I wear it, I get a pretty look. Yes, I cannot deny that, but it doesn't look very different from one another. But if you are more on the lighter, paler skin tone side, I feel like this palette would be amazing, especially if you wear a lot of this color story. I think you'll absolutely love it. Okay, let's talk about Simply Posh Cosmetics. I wanted to recommend two palettes from them, Cozy Cabin palette and the Coastal palette. Let's start off with the Coastal palette. This came out this year. And it's such a beautiful, again, a muted, colorful palette, I would say, except that green and the blue in the middle. Everything else is so neutral leaning, I would say. It is an amazing palette. I've worn this to office again a lot of times, and I've gotten so many compliments too. I love the layout of Simply Posh Cosmetics palette. This is definitely my second favorite palette that they have ever created. And coming very close, my favorite Simply Posh Cosmetics cosmetics palette is the Cozy Cabin palette. This came out last holiday, and this, I feel like they absolutely nailed the palette. Absolutely nailed the palette. I love the muted warm tone side and the muted cool tone side, and their shimmers are A++. I know that they have this in stock for this year too, so grab it when you can. I am an affiliate with the brand. My code Smithy Sony would save you 10% off. Is it Smithy or Smithy Sony? I think it's Smithy. I'll leave it in the description box below for you guys, but this palette is absolutely amazing. Okay, let's talk about Whatsup Beauty. Whatsup Beauty, actually this is the only palette that I've tried from Whatsup Beauty and absolutely fell in love with it, and I've traveled with it quite often. It is compact, it is blendable, it is colorful, but it is muted at the same time. This is Dragon Eyes palette, and look at the color, sorry. It's muted but colorful, but on the eyes, it looks so elegant, you guys. I cannot recommend this enough. I'm waiting for their new palette to come out in the market so that I can grab it. This is an absolutely amazing palette. Amazing palette to have. Oh, it's so pretty. Even those greens, it looks, I know it screams green on the screen, but on the eyes, it is such a muted green that shifts to a purple. All these shades are very shifty too. I love this palette. Like, yeah, absolutely would love and highly recommend this. Okay, let's talk about Adept Cosmetics. Adept Cosmetics did my favorite neutral palette in this year, and this is the Flying Fiddles palette. The amount of times I've used this palette is unreal. Like, this gives me such beautiful, vibrant looks on the eyes, but it is so wearable too. I 100% would recommend this if you are a neutral wearer and if you want to test out indie shadows. Try this. I don't think you'll be disappointed. This is such a yummy palette to have in your collection. I have a code with them. It's Smithy Sony to save you 10% off. This is a beautiful palette, like with those mauvey tones, the teals, the browns. Everything is so perfect, so perfect. I'm not a big green person. I've said this a million times. I just swap this like green Kelly shade and this daffodil shade, and I replace it with purple tones because I feel like purples are my neutral colors. So I just swap it, and this palette is magnetic, so it's easily swappable too. And that I just create my own perfect little palette, and I travel with this quite often. I absolutely love this one. Okay, let's talk about a brand that completely captured my heart this year, and I'm going to talk about Nomad Cosmetics. They came out with two palettes that absolutely come in this category of neutral palettes, and I want to talk about the Polar Express palette as well as Chicago Speakeasy palette. This is definitely my favorite out of the two just because of the color story. Again, I told you that green is not my favorite color to wear, but purple is my absolute favorite color to wear. And these greens are not like punchy greens on your eyes, but these are so beautifully curated, but with like a hint of uniqueness to the palette, because this is Smithy in a palette, okay, and this is all neutral tones which I wear often, and this gives it such an interesting twist to this palette. This is so beautiful, and the multi-chromes that they included in this palette is also absolutely wearable. It's very thin, so it never creases on my eyelids, and it is so impactful on the eyes too. Beautiful. Would 100% recommend it. I do have a code with Nomad too. It's Smithy Sony to save you 10% off. The second palette that I want to recommend is for, again, the cool tone wearers, the Polar Express palette. This is another way that they have curated. It has a blue color story, it has a neutral color story, and then some neutral shimmers to complement it. I feel like this palette is also so beautifully curated for like bridging the gap between the cool tones and the warm tones together. And this is so beautiful and so perfect on the eyes. I absolutely would recommend this too. If you are a blue wearer, I feel like you would absolutely love this palette. 100%. Like, these silvers are so pretty. The white is so vibrant on the eyes. I absolutely love it. Okay, let's talk about Krypton Cosmetics. This is another brand that absolutely knocked my socks off this year, and I tried every palette that they have come out with, but this is the palette that comes in this category of like neutral color story, and I'm talking about the Burnt Forest palette. This was their first palette that they ever created, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Like, again, this is a palette for green wearers and neutral wearers with a pop of blue here and there. I think the only shade that I do not use quite often in this palette is this vibrant blue, but apart from that, everything is so pretty on the eyes. Again, these greens are not like screaming Kelly greens. They're very muted on the eyes too, and this green is so dark that I can absolutely rock this palette. I absolutely love the quality of these palette. Even the darker tones, if you go with a lighter hand and you mesh it on your crease, it can act as a transitioning shade, and then any of these shimmers are so vibrant, so shifty. I would 100% recommend Krypton Cosmetics to you guys. They have so many color stories on their website. My favorite is Violet Crazy, but this is like that close. My code is Smithy Sony to save you 10% off here. Let's talk Gorman Girls. Gorman Girls last winter season, I think they came out with this Silent Night palette. This is again a very neutral color story with pops of blues, and I absolutely love the quality of Gorman Girls shadows, especially that come in this style, like these 14 pan eyeshadow palettes. I absolutely love every single one of them. This is such a beautiful palette. It's stunning, you guys. Again, I can get a very similar look to what I created using this palette too, and the quality is absolutely wonderful. This shade Peace has my heart. It's such a unique shade in my collection. It might look like a iridescent white, but it has like a hint of blue in it. It has like a white gold in it. It is so pretty. Again, I am an affiliate with Gorman Girls. It's Smithy Sony to save you 10% off. I want to talk about Wicked Widow Beauty. Wicked Widow Beauty actually came out with this newest palette for Halloween season, and it came very recently in my collection, but I could not stop using it. This is definitely muted, grungy, neutral tones, and this is Tales of Terror palette. Look at this palette. Look at this palette. Yes, it is colorful for sure, but it is muted but rich tones, and these shimmers are absolutely elegant on the eyes. My favorite two shimmers, of course, are these neutral tones. They are so pretty on the eyes, you guys. I cannot recommend this palette enough. I have my code Smithy Sony that will give you 10% off. I hope that it works for this palette too, but this palette is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. This is stunning, absolutely stunning. And last, certainly not the least, the palette that I'm wearing on my eyes is from Florasis, and this is the Soaring Sunlight palette. I wanted to just wear this because this screams neutral to me for sure, but I wanted to just get out of my box comfort zone and wear this and see how it performs on my eyes. I paired these like brown tones with these blues and these neutral leaning shimmers, and you will see it on my towards the end how I created this look. But all like Florasis palette are so neutral leaning that I wanted to recommend for you guys. If you are scared of indie shimmers, you want elegant shimmers, I feel like Florasis will definitely fulfill your fantasies with this like quality of the eyeshadow palette. I really love them too. It's very elegant, very office appropriate, I would say. But that's all for today. These are all my recommendations for like neutral tone color palettes. because I do have a lot of eyeshadow palettes in my collection. I'm a big eyeshadow fanatic, so I wanted to recommend my top favorites to you guys. Now let's move on to the eye look that I created using that Sorcerous palette. I'm going to start off with this shade and then deepen it out with this shade. Let's see if that performs on our eyes or not. And again, I am using the palette called Soaring Sunlight from Sorcerous. And this is just a hint deep than my skin tone. A little bit more gray leaning, I would say. Like a gray brown. It amazingly is giving like a shadow to my eye, which is perfect. Also going to take the same thing on my lower lash line. Now I'm taking that deeper brown, this one. And I'm just going to take that in the outer corner as well as in the inner corner of the eye. And I'm going to take this mauve shade, this one. It's more like a dusty purple, I would say. I'm just gazing it towards the crease. And I'm also going to take that same shade on my lower lash line. I'm going to take this deeper blue. I'm going to take a hint of it again in the inner corner. That's such a subtle but an elegant blue. I love it. And I'm also going to take that in the outer corner. I'm going to take this shade. I'm going to just pat it right in the center of the eye. Just right there. It's so sparkly but also smooth. Love it. I'm going to just melt the edges. Just so that there's no harsh lines. And then I'm going to take that lighter shade, this one, for my inner corners. Just right there. Let me finish off this eye with some liner and mascara. And that's my final look. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this look that I created with this Sorcerous palette, the Soaring Sunlight palette. I feel like this might look very subdued and like very everyday, but you definitely can achieve like some colorful looks also. That is pretty wearable too. I really love the way how this turned out. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did like this video, you know what to do. Do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so that you're notified every time that I post next. I generally upload 3 videos every single week, every Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at 9 AM Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.